Nick,
Hey.
how is your day going aside from having to do interview after interview?
Yes, it's been a great stress on my technical abilities. I can tell you that. I keep losing calls or pressing the wrong Zoom buttons, or speaking with mute on and all of that stuff. So it's I need to. I'm longing. I wish we were in the same room. The good old days when I'd be in a hotel room somewhere and people would come in and we'd all get we get some free drinks out of it. I miss them.
I got it. Now, of course, I'm a fan of your acting, but your directing work is not too shabby as well. Creation Tales, I'm a fan.
Oh, thank you.
I am a longtime fan of Creation Records. Love the discography. But what was
right? Oh, cool. So you know I'm talking to a convert. This is good.
Oh yeah, Teenage Fan Club is one of my 5 favorite bands ever. But I'm curious.
It's very interesting. I wanted to get more of them in the movie, and when we got the script from Irvin and Dean, and they just weren't in it, and I was like, well, I've got to get them in somehow. So I managed to just shimmy in a little bit of Teenage Fan Club, and then if the eagle-eyed will know that it's the Teenage Fan Club drummer is he's running the recording desk in one of the scenes. So I got a tiny cameo for him, but unfortunately, his dialogue was a bit soapy, so I had to cut that out. But I tried to get them in because they're such a great band, and they were big in America. They supported Nirvana, and they were quite a big band over there, and they're fantastic.
Exactly. Which was the first of the Creation bands that you were familiar with in the first place, though?
Well, I mean, the first. Jesus and Mary Chain were massive, and I was like 15 with spots and backcombed hair and a fake ID in my pocket, trying to get into Jesus and Mary Chain gigs, and so I remember them vividly, and then the big thing was Primal Scream. That Screamadelica, when that album came out, that was a complete game changer. That was these guys were on top of the pops. Their tracks was massive, and that was, so I think those guys really were the first big Creation thing. And then I thought Ride were very, very good, and then there was, and then I started getting really into this scene that was erupting, and I saw Oasis very early doors in at the Astoria in London in probably 95, 96, something like that, and they were amazing. They were obviously going to be huge. I saw them at their first gig at Glastonbury, and then this is what was so crazy for me. Then cut to 18 months later, I'm in the biggest movie in the UK, and suddenly I'm at parties with all of these guys. Suddenly I'm hanging out with pop stars. That scene backstage at the that we had backstage after the Primal Scream gig, I probably would have been there. So it was very interesting for me to be a big fan of the label, and then to suddenly be part of that sort of media sort of that party scene. It was incredible. And my favorite band out of all of that lot would probably, I think there's any really, really obscure, but I remember Swerve Driver were great, and
oh yeah,
Ride, as I said, Ride were a great band to watch.
Yes.
So of the less obvious ones.
Clearly you like bands that have pedals on stage that are looking down at the pedals, which I am as well. And one thing that I don't think people speak about with Oasis very often is they are one of the loudest bands I've ever seen live. I'm into metal, but I always found that Oasis is louder. I couldn't hear for 2 days after their New York show.
Yeah. That's very interesting that you should say that. So what I did when we were doing the because this is the thing, Oasis aren't in the film very much because it's not really about Oasis. It's about a guy who creates an epoch, you know, and creates this scene, even but using magic, you know, because he's told he can't, because he believes in other things, you know, he changes the world around him, and Oasis are like the flower on the end of this. But when we did do the Oasis scenes, I went through a lot of research and I found some live gigs of Oasis performing. I think the one we do, Rock and Roll Star, I think it's from a live TV show in France, a French television TV show, a rock and roll show. And you are reminded that as a live band, when they were at their actual pomp, they were like the Rolling Stones. They were spectacular. And it only, you know, it's very, very loud. They create a sort of, you know, there's like a dynamic out of being that loud, you know, that's like, it really works. The music has a different energy. If it's played loud and tight and well, and it's structured, not just loud, you know, there's other things to it. And they were like I said, like the Who or like the Stones, you know, people weren't playing that sort of melodic but loud, intense rock, you know, that sort of sing-along rock. It wasn't loud and obtrusive. It was loud and beguiling, you know, loud and drew you in. And they were, you know, that when they were at their peak, you put them next to any band there's ever been. You know, they're amazing as a live band.
Well, specific to the movie, it's interesting in that it jumps around time periods a lot. You know, we see he's young and then he's old and then the middle and then that kind of a thing. Was the script purely written that way, or is that your director's vision?
Yeah. Well, I was explaining this to someone earlier. See, I'm a great believer in it. The great thing about telling stuff in retrospect, which is what I did in my first movie as well, is if you have someone sits down and they start telling a story, then you can, when you go to that scene, you don't have to arrive, you don't have to build up to it. You can just drop in for the best bits and leave on a high, and go back to that person being interviewed or that person doing whatever it is they're doing. If you keep something linear, you have to get in the car and go there and open the door and sit down and have the conversation, and then the conversation ends and then you have to get up and leave. Whereas if you embrace what Irvin and Dean had done with the early draft of the script, was have this as the tool to get you in and out of the life story while he's being interviewed. But if you really, really embrace that when you're editing it, it means you can just get the best bits. It's a fantastic way of filmmaking where you can just drop in, say that thing and then come out again. Drop in, get that really funny line and come back out again. And you move forward without needing to explain how you got there or how you left. And what I did with it was with the editing was made the most of that. So we managed to cram as many years in as fewer minutes by using that, coming backwards and forwards.
Well done. And my last question for you, being mindful of your time here, is before winding up on this project, had you ever met Alan?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'd met him when he was sober, so I didn't meet Crazy Alan, which is a real shame. But this is a tiny little fact. So I live in Fitzroy Square in the centre of London, in just off of Oxford Street, Tottenham Court Road, Oxford Street. Ironically, Guy Ritchie is 3 doors down. Oh. We're on the same road. We're right in the centre of town, and there's a used to be a slightly crummy pub on the corner, and this is where it gets a bit crazy. Guy has bought it. Guy famously bought the pub after he moved in down the road from me. He bought the pub and it's made it into this, this really cool sort of pub. Anyway, I start working on the movie, blah, 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 start doing the research. It's the pub that Alan McGee started the living room in. It's like 30 feet away from my front door. And that's the same pub where I live now. So I was like, this is ridiculous. So I did a little bit of guerrilla filming where you see the outside when they walk into the living room pub.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the exterior is the pub that's now owned by Guy Ritchie and is 20 feet from my front door, and I just tried to crop it so you see the telecom towers, like this sort of skyscraper tower. You tilt down, and you see the actual pub. That's the actual pub where the Jesus and Mary chain played their first gig, where Primal Scream played their first gig, and now it's this gastro pub owned by Guy Ritchie, 20 feet from my front door. So I missed him by minutes, but I tried to make up for it. I never met the young crazy Alan. I only met him when he was older and a bit more measured, and the Alan that we know. But he's still crazy. He's still he'll still say things that make your toes curl. He's still a crazy character.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your time, and I'm glad that you were able to make Creation Story a mainstream thing through this movie. So congratulations on getting it out, and looking forward to your next one.
Listen, I'm so happy that you guys, the guys in the US, I mean, obviously New York is a slightly more civilized place than a lot of the other parts of America, so you're a bit more culturally tuned in. But I'm so glad that you got the film. My worry was that it would just it would just go over your heads, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just it's a cultural thing, and that maybe you wouldn't get it. And I'm so happy that you did and that you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one.
Looking forward, man. Take care.
Thanks, Darren. Bye-bye.
Paltrocast.